Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue Podcast. I'm very excited about this episode today. Two brothers who are making major moves back where they're from. So we have Tim Webb and Rashae Bay out of South Carolina. Tim currently resides in DC, but they're both from South Carolina. Thank you two for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
No, man, thanks for having us.
Yeah, man, definitely a pleasure.
Awesome. So first, would love to hear from you two what your childhoods were like, and what you saw, or maybe what you didn't see that shaped your view of building wealth.
Rashae, you want to go first?
Yeah. So what I saw, I'm originally from Greeleyville, South Carolina, and that's a small town, man. If you're familiar with the Low Country area. So I saw nothing really, and that gave me the drive to want to see more and do more. My small town had a lot to do with my entrepreneurial drive, and also growing up, I've always had, something more than just, the average guy going on. So I was always, trying to sell candy or sell jewelry or it was just in me, man. Me and my father we were very entrepreneurial, and that was just something that was like an extracurricular activity for us, man. It was like playing basketball, to be honest. So yeah, having a very strong-minded and entrepreneurial father and growing up in a small area where there was really nothing there, that's what really drove my entrepreneurial spirits up out of the roof.
Yeah, and I would say for me, I grew up in a military family, so I moved around my entire life. Both of my parents were military. My mom got out when she had me and my twin sister. So, that was really kind of all I knew. Really, either join the military or go to school, get a good job, or be an athlete, right? So. But I think I kind of started experiencing, my entrepreneur journey when I would start throwing different ideas at my dad, as far as like pitching certain things of like, hey, do you think this exists? What if I create something like this, just different things of that sort. But once I went to the University of South Carolina, I think entrepreneurs always succeed when they find a niche and find a gap and fulfill that gap. So, of course, University of South Carolina is a predominantly white institute. So there was really nothing catered to, African Americans. So me and my line brother actually started throwing events catering to our audience, right? So that really started where I started seeing cash flow from just basically, putting something that goes to market and people as consumers buy into it, which ultimately kicked off, entrepreneurship for me. And as I sort of shifted into a corporate career, real estate was my way back in, along with, my lifestyle brand as well. As far as being an entrepreneur.
Awesome. So it seems like you two, in your backgrounds, childhood through college, there was some type of entrepreneurial activity, thoughts, and actions taking place. And so what I would love to hear is where did real estate come into that picture? I know you mentioned, Tim, it was your way back in, but I would love to hear from both of you, what was that moment where you're like, what, real estate is one of the avenues that I want to take as an individual to start building wealth, and that we want to do together.
Yeah, I think for me, really quick was, I think as I was, in my career, and just, I moved around a lot with my previous role, where my mind sort of expanded to different things, and I was exposed to different things as far as investing, right? So you know, we necessarily weren't handed down how to invest in a 401k or how to invest in a Roth IRA or traditional IRA. So when I was exposed to these things, I was always seeking, you know, more knowledge. So I actually started a Roth at a young age, which, you know, ultimately helped me in my real estate journey as far as investing. But I guess for me, it was always soaking up, you know, new things. So when you know, my chapter is very close knit, me and Rashae's chapter. So when we get together, you know, for our conclaves, and you have young people like Rashae at the table, and they speak on, hey, yeah, I just finished, you know, rehabbing one of my properties. And you're like, man, this guy's 21, 22, 23, and he's, you know, he has 3 properties. So I'm like, I'm at the time probably 27. And I'm like, you know, how do I get into real estate? So I started following a lot of people on Instagram, like, you know, Earn Your Leisure, and just different people as far as who were really heavy into the real estate game, and just started soaking up as much knowledge as possible. And I actually would kind of stay on, you know, Zillow, Realtor.com, all these different sites, just awaiting an opportunity. And they always say is, you know, it's kind of like when you get your first tattoo, right? Like once you get your first tattoo, you kind of overcome that fear and you want to get more. So for me, it was like with real estate, once you buy that first house and you go through that process, man, you know what I'm saying? Like you really kind of take that leap and go through that process and see that it's not all that it's hyped up to be. And it just sort of becomes an addiction after that. So that's my spiel, Rashae. I'll let you go.
Cool. Yeah, man. Shoot. So whenever I was coming up out of high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to be in high school or do in high school, and you know the type of profession that I wanted to have. So you know, going into my freshman year, man, to be honest, I Googled, you know, highest paying salary career with a bachelor's degree, and the first one was nursing, and that just didn't work out for me. I quickly found out, you know, after taking like I think it was like a chem class, and I had to dissect the cat or something like that, and almost threw up on the cat. I just knew that junk wasn't for me. So I Googled that day. I think I Googled second highest paying, and the second highest paying was IT, computer information systems.
Yep.
So I stuck that out, and I got my degree. But while I was, you know, grinding it out every day, you know, taking these coding classes, taking all these different variety of classes, I felt as though that wasn't something that I could say, you know, I can have a nice life with. You know, I didn't think, you know, just IT would give me a solid career, and you know, I would have a nice car and a nice whip, the type of vehicle and the type of house that I was looking for. So I went back to Google, man, and I Googled, man, you know, what are these millionaires doing? You know, what does it take to be a millionaire? What are these millionaires doing?
Right.
And every website, it was real estate. Every link, it was real estate. Every different type of post that had anything to do with how to become a millionaire, it had some sort of real estate involved. So I told myself, man, I'm going in with that real estate because it just made sense. You know, you're buying something that's very valuable, something that holds value up to starting at up to 10,000 all the way up to a couple $1 million. You know, you can get properties that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So being able to buy those properties and put those on your portfolio, that's what makes you wealthy, you know. And I fell in love with that residual income, or the idea of residual income. So I was just like, yo, I gotta do this. And I acquired my first property. It was actually inherited to me. My father got it. He had some sort of deal where if he did this, I think he was clearing land at the time, and this guy didn't want the house that was on the land. So my father just grabbed it, but he was never doing anything with it. So as soon as I got some money from my career, my first IT job, man, I dumped all of that into my first property, and it was on from there.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So I know you two recently closed a huge deal. Was there anything else that y'all two did real estate wise individually? I know Rashae, you mentioned that your first property was through your dad and something that he inherited. But was there anything else that you two did before deciding to come together?
Yeah. So collectively, we have 26 units and a lot. We actually just closed on a lot about 3 weeks ago together. Same seller who sold us the 9 unit on the 1.2 had about a quarter acre over by University of South Carolina football stadium. So definitely capitalized off of that with the relationship that we built. But before that, I had 14 units already. So 11 in South Carolina and 3 in Virginia. So Rashae, Rashae, you had 3, right, before?
Yeah, I got, right now my number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus the 9 that we acquired, and then a lot.
Oh, so there's more. So we got 28 to get collectively. So yeah, so we both definitely had a portfolio beforehand.
Wow, that's awesome. I'd love to hear from both of you. I guess Tim, we go with you. Talk to us about like your first like individual transaction and kind of what that was like. How were you able to fund it and things of that nature? Because I love starting at the beginning because a lot of people, they see where it's at now, right? They see the headline, they see all those things, but the journey is so important. So I would love to just hear about your beginnings.
Yeah, man. It was super stressful, bro. And I think people, definitely want to show the highlights, but not necessarily the behind the scenes, And that's one thing I try to do with, people who ask for advice, and when I just share information, is that it's not as pretty as it looks, man. It's definitely some headache that goes into it, and definitely having the right support system. But let me just take you back. So I started in December. Well, I won't say I started in December. I started in October of when I signed my first purchase agreement. And the crazy thing is the first purchase agreement that I signed was not my first closing. So it was one of those things where you kind of break that fear. And Rashae probably will come back on, where you break that fear. And from there, you kind of like, you get aggressive of like, okay, I see what it looks like. Now let me take on more opportunity. Now I would say, the aggressiveness was a blessing and a curse because, I started feeling myself. But first deal was 2 single families, grandfathered in on 1 parcel, crazy enough, on an acre of land in Hopewell, Virginia. And Hopewell is right outside of Richmond, and I was actually born in Hopewell. So it's crazy how things come back. I'm full circle.
Yeah.
My father was stationed there. That's when me and my sister were born. So I ended up, it was a deal. It was 2 single families for $100,000. Now, mind you, it's sitting on an acre of commercial land, but it's zoned commercial, but it's in use as residential.
Wow.
And it's sitting on sort of a high traffic intersection where is plenty of traffic that comes through there. And the land itself was worth like $215, and that's before we even talk about the dwelling. So it was a no-brainer for me, right? So I signed that agreement, but I was always keeping my eye on South Carolina as well. Came across a single family 3-1. They wanted $35,000 for it, so I got it for about $33,000, which is crazy because you cannot get anything like that in South Carolina today.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, as far as a single family 3-1 in that area, not anymore unless you like really doing your homework, which I was doing. So got that deal under contract, and how I funded it was I accumulated a large amount of funding as far as saving. So I wrote about in the ebook, it's like saving is really crucial when it comes to buying property and making sure your credit is straight. So I was going to go through the bank, Wells Fargo, because that's who I was using. And it was disappointing, man. You know, I kind of got to see things full circle as far as how to deal with large banks, which I would never do now. And I don't discourage anybody who's doing that, but just the amount of sort of information and how long they drag things along. They don't move quickly at all, right? So it ended up affecting my closing date. And I tell people all the time in the ebook that I wrote, be very wary and careful with your closing date, and the contingency as far as what you could potentially pay if you don't close. So I ended up leveraging my Roth IRA funds, which did not penalize me since it was post-tax dollars that I contributed. And I bought my first house cash, which was, I mean, a great feeling, man. So bought my first house cash, and then the deal that I signed in October, I was having some issues with the appraisal process because it was 2 properties on one parcel grandfathered in. So I ended up closing on that one a few months later. And I used capital from my 401k where I borrowed against myself and pay myself back interest. So those are my first 3 cribs within the span of 2 months. So that was exciting for me, man.
Definitely. Before going further, there's a couple things, man, that I want to pull out of that. 3 things, actually. So the first thing you mentioned is just the importance of saving, right? Like, right. It's a discipline that's very important because, right. I was just thinking the other day, maybe I posted something, but if someone can't organize and just control whatever that means to you, whatever you get from your 9 to 5, how do you think you're going to treat the money you get from cash flow? So I think it's great that you mentioned saving, and I want to point out to people that it's very important. You may just have that particular stream, but there's never too little to save. You can start today.
Right.
And then secondly, I like that you mentioned also borrowing against the 401k. A lot of people are not aware of that strategy, but like you said, like you're giving the money back to yourself, right? So it's like, exactly. So you're making yourself more money in the end, and you use part of that money for something that's gonna make you money. So it's like a loop, if that makes sense.
Right.
And then the Roth IRA one is cool as well. I don't think we've had a guest ever really expand on the Roth IRA. Could you explain, like, for folks who maybe they never heard of a Roth IRA, or maybe they have, but they don't really know what it is or how you could utilize it for other things? Could you break that down really quick?
Yeah. So a Roth IRA is a, self-directed retirement fund where you can contribute. Now it's $6,000. It used to be $5,500 a year cap, right? So I've been maxing mine out probably for the past 5 or 6 years, every year. So it's accumulated, money and gains, but it's post-tax dollars. So let's say I get a paycheck, I get paid I then take that money from post-tax and then contribute it to my Roth IRA. So anything that I contribute to the Roth that were my contributions, I can pull with no penalty because I'm not taking any form of gains from that. So I've leveraged that to invest in my first property, but also to the stock market as well. So, anybody that listens to this advice, definitely start one today if you have not already, because, I can, off the top of my head, I have it budgeted, right? It's about $230 every 2 weeks, $460 a month. And that's money that we spend on drinks or, partying. So that maxes you out, and that's capital gains year after year. So definitely take advantage.
Definitely. And was that a year, last year that you started purchasing properties on your own?
Yeah. So I started in December, man, which is crazy.
Oh, wow. I was wondering, I was like, wait, does he mean last year? Cause you said you came up to about, I think 11. So I was wondering, I was like, was that within that time frame, just about a year ago? Not even a year, like 10 months?
Yeah. So what's crazy is, all of my deals made sense on paper and cash flow, right? So the first one, as I mentioned, was 2 on one parcel, which is grandfathered in. So I got 2 extra property that was cash flowing, and then the Columbia house was a single family, but that was kind of my first foot in the door in Columbia. After that, there was a developer who was selling the remaining townhouses that were not owner occupied, just to get out of the community, and that was 5 townhouses packaged, and I think I paid about $190 for that, for all 5. All were tenant occupied, so I already had cash flow, and my goal for that, was to either buy the entire neighborhood. There's 3 buildings, so 12 units total, or buy the remaining units that would get me the 2 buildings as a whole. So I own 2 townhouse buildings, so 8 units in that community. So I'm 2/3 owner. And then we had, there was a duplex in West Columbia, right by downtown, crazy area that's changing tremendously. And then the 9 unit. So I definitely ramped up fast, but I always tell people too is, the reason I was able to do it was buying cheap but smart properties, and I'll talk about this in the ebook too. Is buy smart, cheap properties that make sense from a cash flow perspective, and that's how I've been able to accumulate my portfolio.
Definitely, and Rashae, would love to hear from you as well. I know you mentioned the first property. Would just love to hear more about what you did thereafter. And then after that, we'd just love to hear more about this deal that has you two going viral these days.
Oh, man. Yeah. So with mine, man, it's plain and simple. My first property it took me almost a year to do because I was using my income, the little bit of income that I was getting from my first job, and I was just pouring every single dollar into that property. I wasn't going out that much. I wasn't doing too much of anything, man. Everything that I had, man, it was going to that first property. And once I got that one up and rented out, man, I felt like damn Steve Jobs, man. I felt like it just felt really good, seeing all of that money and all of a year's work finally coming to fruition. And it was just like maybe $700 a month for that first property, but it being, completely paid off. I didn't owe anybody anything. It was good seeing that full $700 going to the bank. And of course, I had expenses like insurance, tax, and stuff like that. But it gave me the fuel to want to do more and more. So that was my first property, and then my second property came along with me the people right across the street from me saw me and my father and all these contractors, bustle in and out of this property. So eventually they came to the decision that they wanted to sell their property, which was directly right across the street from the one that I was working on. So I went to the bank and I got the amount that they wanted. And I was able to get the amount that they wanted, plus the amount that it took for me to fix it up from the bank. And that was just a personal loan. And I went in there and I grinded that one out too. And then eventually, after being able to rent it out, man, I was able to get that one paid off too. So I eventually had 2 properties that was just free and clear. Ended up getting another property further down on the same road, personal loan. I think at that point I was able to acquire, I think I was about 1, maybe 2 years in with my job. So I was able to get like this pretty nice credit card that gave me a pretty big balance. I think the balance was like $25,000. So I used that 25 grand from that credit card to just fix up my third property. And man, it was crazy because I was like paying like 27% interest on this credit card. I was going to Lowe's, like buying stuff like crazy, not even really caring. And it just shows like the lack of experience of, I guess the eagerness to want to finish that property, man. I was going in the Lowe's, buying everything on the credit card, and just taking it back to my hometown, back to the property to fix it up. And thankfully, I didn't use up the whole limit to fix it up. But once I got that one acquired, man, I took my time and I just I wanted to get some of that debt off. So I chilled for a little while and just kind of, focused on my job. And, more opportunities came to me, and, I acquired another one here, another one there. And then at that point, I think me and Tim was just like feeding off of each other. Tim was talking about a discussion where he saw me and him were together, and there was a couple of our other fraternity brothers. And we was at a dinner, and we was just talking about, what we had, what we got going on. And, me and Tim kept a close eye on each other, I think. And, Tim was getting properties, I was getting properties. We was, both fixing them up. And then it came the 9 unit. The opportunity came for the 9 unit. And I just felt as though, I saw what he was doing. I saw his work ethic. I called him up when I saw the 9 unit, and it was just like, yo, we need this. This is the perfect opportunity. We knew the area really well. And we knew the potential that the 9 units had. So it was a no-brainer. And it was like, where do we sign? So being able to start out with that, it was like, man, it was perfect. And I think it took all that preparation from us individually, all that hard work that we had to do. Him pulling out his Roth and me, maxing out my credit card. It took that experience, all that hard work for us to get to the point where we was like, okay, yeah, we can eat this 9 units.
Right.
For sure. And so there's something that I definitely would love to hear more about. It seems like you each individually had pretty solid success in a relatively short period of time. And as you know, for our people, sometimes it's hard to work with one another. Sometimes we just rather do things on our own, which probably isn't the best thing. But, given you two were already doing pretty well individually, what made you want to collaborate and come together and start to build together?
I think personally, a lot of what Rashae already spoke to. So it's just crazy, right? And I think just to add a little bit more detail to his story that he was saying was the very first unit that I purchased, right? It already had a tenant in it. But when it came time to where the tenant thankfully left, I had a ton of work to do, and I really leaned against the shield for the frat, and had everyone that's involved in this project that we're doing now involved in that project. And that's our old advisor, Jermaine Brand, who is now our GC for this project. I mean, just willing to lend a helping hand. And I remember like yesterday, me and Rashae struggling to put a new vanity in the house, right? So I just think that's just kind of spoke volume as far as like for someone to be so young but be so educated and hands-on with their properties of how this deal made sense. And I remember at the time, I was either preparing to close on the duplex in West Columbia, or I had just closed on it. And like I said, to add more context to the story, Rashae called me and was like, "Hey man, I see these 9 units in downtown Columbia, but we could not put our finger on where they were, where it was located. And it looks totally different over there. Like gentrification is real, man. It's completely real, and it's by Benedict College, which is a HBCU, and also Allen University, but it also is kind of centrally located to the University of South Carolina as well. And there were projects across the street, and the street view. So when you go see it, you're like, man, what happened to everything? But that was all knocked down because they started building new construction. So you start seeing people who don't look like us in the neighborhood. And it just made sense to do, and it's a huge job, right? We're talking 9 units. And I know Rashae could speak to this. I mean, we spent a crazy amount of money as far as renovations thus far from our portion that we have to spend before we use the bank's money. But, all I can really say is it made sense, man. And the reason that it made so much sense is because Rashae was originally bidding on that house and did not get it. Someone else outbid him and ended up going under contract. My line brother, Miles Madden, ended up sending it to me about 2 or 3 weeks later. And I hit my realtor like, hey, is this on the market? And she reached out to the seller's agent, and he said, yeah, it literally just came on the market. So the crazy thing about it is we ended up getting it $20,000 plus $10,000 in closing, cheaper than what the original offer was. So it just shows you how things are sort of meant to be, right? And that's how we sort of evolved together and ended up making it happen, man.
Wow, that's incredible. So was it in an auction?
Say that one more time.
Was it an auction?
No, it wasn't an auction. So okay. What happened is it was 2 ladies who inherited a lot of land and property that their father owned, and were just offloading these assets because they really were just looking for the cash value, which for us was a benefit. Yeah. And creating that relationship, as I mentioned as well, to where literally we turned around a month later and purchased like the perfect lot in a hot area that, when we were in undergrad was like the place to live. If you lived over there, like that was conveniently located. And at the time, come on, man, I didn't have the money to live in that area. So to turn around and buy over there is just like, man, it's just crazy just looking back at like the journey to get to this process for real.
Definitely, man. That's amazing. So as far as like the rehab, are you utilizing like a construction loan? It sounds like it's a pretty big job that you need to do. Are you like fully renovating the whole entire building?
Full renovation, man. Full renovation, and we're doing a rehab loan with our bank. So it's actually love. We're recently, like, we're actually at the little last bit that we have to spend before we start doing draws from the bank. But complete renovation, man. We're it's 4 duplexes and a single family. So
wow.
We're thinking that we're gonna knock the single family down, because it really serves no purpose as to putting that much money into it. And we're already beginning plumbing, electrical, and HVAC for the 3 units on the front side, and then the fourth duplex. We're trying to see if we can still utilize it, as it has some foundational issues. But me and Rashae speak 2-3 times, 4 times a day on floor plans, sort of budgeting, all these things, man. But I think one of the most important things you said earlier is that Black people, let's be real, have a hard time working together. And I used to at times be in that mindset of, let me get all I can get or accomplish all I can accomplish. But being in this situation, man, and not even being in this current situation, but as I've grown my portfolio, I will honestly say I would fail if I didn't have a solid support system. And that's a business partner and also my support. So my mother's my property manager for my properties that are occupied.
Nice.
And if I didn't have that, man, I wouldn't be having this conversation of telling my success story. So it's very important that we sort of put egos down in our community and collaborate. Otherwise, we'll continue to be stuck. Mm-hmm. And we see different backgrounds of people doing it every single day. So, let's stop trying to impress with materialistic things and buy assets and work together doing so.
I just want to say something real quick pertaining to the infrastructure of the 9-unit.
Mm-hmm.
So this 9-unit, man, it wasn't like these things were already rented out or these things were, kind of in good condition. These things were, block buildings, 4 duplexes that is ugly. It's in no way, shape, or form, livable. There's nothing in it. It's just straight ugly. The roofs are horrible, so we were starting from square one. Right. And the experience that we got from this, it was something that goes, you got paid to get this experience. We got it cost
Hey, Rashae, you must be in a bad area because your phone is cutting out.
Oh, my bad. So the education that we're getting from this horrible renovation, and when I say renovation, it's the condition that the properties were in that was horrible. I feel as though me and Tim are doing a great job with the renovation. And the education that we're getting from this, man, is really invaluable. And what Tim just spoke on, as far as working with men of our color, that's just a piece of the education that we got from this renovation. Mm-hmm. And I swear I wouldn't have thought that we would have got this type of education from this type of renovation. But we're learning a lot, man. And it's a crazy journey, to be honest, like Tim said.
Right.
Definitely. So I guess furthermore, like what's it been like just managing a job of this magnitude? Sounds like, obviously it's a full renovation, which is great. It's an awesome experience, but like what's the timeline looking like on it as of now? And just like, what's it been like? What have been kind of some of the highs and lows so far?
Yeah, I think honestly, man, you know, once again,
So do something.
Rashae, you breaking up. So yeah, so
My bad.
really,
Go ahead, John.
okay, no, yeah. So I think the biggest thing here again, man, is leaning on the shield for the frat, man. And I think since we were already so close knit, um, you know, you kind of learn, you know, the business aspect when you're in undergrad, you know, going like basically treating the frat as a business. So whenever we start speaking about this project, it was really nothing, man. And I'm not downplaying it as far as like it's not a huge project, but I think all of us meshed so well together, right? You have Brent, who's our previous advisor, that does this and has been doing this for years and years and years. So you know, I think once we start pulling the permits, and then we have Mr. Marshall, who's also our frat bro too, who's doing the roofs. So it's like we start leveraging each other's network as far as getting the job done. So the framer came from a job Brenton was already previously working on. So that was a no-brainer. Our electrician came from the framer. The plumber came from Brenton from a previous job, and our HVAC came from Brenton from a previous job. So
yeah,
when you start speaking about collaboration and networking, man, when people try to do things on their own, I guarantee you this would be a tremendous struggle. But when you deal with people who have experience and network, it's been seamless, man. And to be honest, we knock on wood, God forbid, we have not run into any roadblocks as of yet, and everything has been smooth sailing. So Rashae's the pay man where he writes all the checks,
yeah.
and I'm the budget guy as far as he checks in with me and my spreadsheet before he writes the ones and check and make sure we're all on the same page. But man, I have zero complaints as of now, and the way it's going, I'm actually going home next weekend.
Nice.
You know, I think we'll be almost ready for drywall, and I think honestly, either late November, early December, we'll be done.
Wow. And when did y'all acquire it again?
We got this. Rashae, when was this? When closed?
August 24th, man. We closed on that.
Yeah, August 24th.
Wow, that's a pretty quick turnaround, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. One thing I will say, and this is not even to be funny or like cocky or bragging, but when I say money talks and having people who have, you know, a decent sized team, man, those people work quick. So, I mean, the roofs were getting knocked out in like half a day.
Wow.
You know, like the framing and everything, I think the framing will be done on the second unit, the second dwelling by end of this week. So that gives plumbing, HVAC, and the electrician the opportunity to go in. So, and I think those guys have crews. So it's really been smooth selling, man. We haven't run into any roadblocks. So hopefully when we start doing inspections and draws and stuff, our bank is pretty cool. So I don't foresee any roadblocks in the near future either.
That's awesome, man. So you two are the first guests we've had out of the South Carolina market. So I would just love to just know more for our listeners, more about the market, more about the city or cities y'all are invested in, what's happening, what's changing, what have you observed over the years? Really just give a spotlight on the market.
Yeah, Rashae, you want to go first or you want me to go first?
I can speak a little bit on that.
Okay.
So as far as the market goes, so if you understand real estate, sort of, kinda, you know, you get the value of something based off of how much it's making. And in South Carolina, I noticed, you know, a great rule of thumb for value on a property is about an 8 cap. the cap rate or the amount that it's making based off of the value. So an 8 cap is kind of decent or kind of average in South Carolina. And in South Carolina, yeah, I'll say in South Carolina, I'm not going to pinpoint it to just Columbia. But, you know, that's different if you move, you know, to a bigger area like a Richmond, Virginia, or a New York City. You know, stuff is much more valuable compared to how much it's making. So in a Richmond or a DC area, stuff may be at a 6 cap or a 5 cap, and that's just less income based off of the value or the cost of the house. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing right now in Columbia. I think stuff is just at an 8 cap, and if you're willing to, you know, get in there with the right crew and rehab your properties, then you can get a better deal on it. But if you're just looking for, you know, a rent-ready property, then you're going to have to spend a good, pretty penny for that.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in quickly too. So I actually moved from Columbia in 2013, and when I say South Carolina as a whole has changed tremendously, and parts that people would not touch are becoming the hot spots in the city. We just spoke about North Main yesterday, day before yesterday, of how that is like a valuable market now. And literally, I mean, there's an Obama gas station on that on North Main, so you know what it looks like today, but it's soon to be a super hot area. Also, I think another big thing for me that really kind of got me so interested in my hometown was I think the top 10 hottest up and coming real estate markets, South Carolina was like number 7 or 8.
Wow.
And you get so many investors from like California and different places that do not probably have never stepped foot in Columbia that are investing. And things on the market do not last. It's a super hot market, so you have to be super aggressive. And not only as a buyer, but your agent. So shout out to Kayla. She knows, like, when I hit her for something, like it needs to, like, an offer needs to be, I need to be signing a offer in the next 20, 30 minutes. Cause like, that's ridiculous. It is. And as I mentioned, I bought my first property for $33,000. Mm-hmm. My girl just closed on one that was already renovated, literally 2-3 streets over, $76,000. That's a $43,000 difference in the course of 10 months. Wow. You know, so that shows you, like, now, if I would have known what I know now back then, man, I would have tried to buy as much stuff as possible, because now everything is on the up. So it's definitely a hot market. But definitely, if you have the opportunity, you know, for sure, check it out.
Definitely. And then what does the future look like? I know, you know, y'all are, you know, getting close to finishing up this most recent acquisition, but what are some hopes that you two have for the future? Do y'all want to do more deals together? Do y'all want to continue to hopefully buy up more of the city?
Yeah. I think buy back the block is a real thing now, man. Like, you know, I think now we're kind of building a support as far as funding deals to where we can go even larger, right? And we're also expanding our network with, you know, the city, of kind of understanding the ends of affordable housing, you know, things of that sort, to where that potentially is something that we tap into. So I think this one is kind of like, you buy your single family, you get into multifamily, you get into commercial where you're dealing with a variety of multifamily. And now it's like, okay, next step is like, we have to go big. And one thing we didn't say is by code, right, 1.2 acres allows us to build a total of, I want to say it's like 25 units. So we can build, like we have an opportunity to build new construction of 14 more units.
Wow.
In that land. So, and that's what we're like, and I think honestly that's going to be our next project. Like I said, the area is changing. It's literally right behind, beside a park where a lot of Carolina students come play. There's a $68 million development coming across from where we are. Didn't mention that either.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think the sky's the limit, man. So we definitely will start to go big or go home, and just really have like a tremendous portfolio as two young African-American kids in South Carolina. Rashae, what you think is next?
And man, this all started from just eagerness and taking advantage of the opportunities. We were both eager to hop on this. I swear I didn't think I was going to be involved with the amount of properties and the amount of opportunity that we have in our future, man. Me and Tim, I think with this, the amount of experience and education that we got from this 9-unit, I wouldn't have been confident to buy a lot and be prepared to just, build something as nice as the properties that surround it. So, like, the sky is the limit with what we know now and our network. Man, the only thing that's stopping us right now is just the amount of money, to be honest. We don't have all the money in the world. So that's the only thing that's stopping us. But the education that we have and the network that we have, like you said, like we're now eager and able and capable of building 14 more units on the piece of land that we already have. And I swear, I'm telling you, I wouldn't have been as confident to do something like this 2 years ago.
Right.
So it just took working together, always being eager, always keeping your eyes open, and just continuing to get more educated, man. That's it.
Definitely. And speaking of education, so let's say you have someone who's interested in real estate, they're very excited and eager, but they're a little scared too. They don't really know, where to go, how to figure certain things out. What are a couple of tips you would give to somebody in that situation who is just at the beginning and, maybe they're not sure which direction to go in?
Yeah. Man, so people would call this a shameless plug, but I honestly am not doing this to plug myself or my business.
Please plug, please.
But I will.
Please do.
Like I said, I have a lifestyle brand, more than a 9-to-5. And I actually just wrote an ebook on how to invest in real estate. And I mean, literally, man, I literally poured myself into things that I've learned on my journey of how to do so, and sort of things to look out for, how to analyze deals that could potentially, grant cash flow, how to refinance, how to keep buying, right? I honestly think, like, even the amount of feedback, right? Like, people that I don't even know that have read it felt like that it has helped them on their journey. Like, literally, and I say, the only reason I say this is because for me, I was piecemealing information. Like, I was on YouTube, I was on Instagram watching people's videos, I was reading up on Bigger Pockets. I mean, like crazy, just trying to soak up as much knowledge as possible, man. And I kind of took all of those pieces and put it into Buy Back the Block, the ebook on More Than 9-to-5. But, I say, number one, the biggest thing that we as a generation are hesitant to do is take a risk outside of our comfort zone, because we've been handed down tradition for so many years that anything that is outside of the norm as far as entrepreneurship is sort of kind of brings hesitation. So I'll tell anybody, and I'm not saying go sign a purchase agreement for anything. It definitely has to make sense. But after I signed my first purchase agreement, I knew I was capable of being where I am today, and I manifested it. And I think that's really how I got here. So soak up as much knowledge as possible. Make sure a deal makes sense, and you have a safety net to protect yourself. If you have someone like-minded, partner on your first one, and sky's the limit. So yeah, Rashae, I'll let you add to that.
Yeah, man, those three things that you said last, that's the ticket, man. You got to educate yourself first, because you got to be able to speak the language, that these contractors are saying, and that these real estate agents are talking. You got to understand, how much days that it takes to close, and what do you have to do during that closing period, and, what is escrow, and you got to understand the language. So first, educate yourself.
Right.
And second, go out there and try to find you a deal, find what you think you will be interested in. And then once you think you found what you will be interested in, like the third thing, man, go seek out that mentor, man. Try to find someone that you can partner with, and try to pick their brain and, their experience, and say, does this make sense? If I try to do this deal, what could be the things that I run into that could be a problem for me? So yeah, man. And then once you got that mentor, man, you should be good to go. Because if that's a good mentor, then they shouldn't lead you to the path of destruction or lead you in any wrong way.
Definitely. Man, this has just been a very, very inspiring interview. So much game, so much wisdom and knowledge you two have dropped. Let's say, the main thing that comes to mind is just like collaboration and humility. Like you two could have easily just went your own direction, still been boys, still been brothers and friends, and just kind of did your own thing. But, I'm pretty sure it will be hard to, Tim or Rashae, if you got the 9 unit yourself, it might be hard to put all the pieces together. Perhaps you don't get to a point where the turnaround time is as swift. You just broke down very simply for us a couple of the roles that you two split up. But I think it just speaks to the power of collaboration, and you just get further faster. 2 brains are better than 1. If it's just you, if you look at other communities, they do everything together. It's a team sport. So, I think it's very inspirational. And I'm really glad that we got to spotlight South Carolina as well. Something else I want people to understand is that you don't necessarily have to invest in places where you're familiar with, or places that are the first to come to mind. Maybe you've been thinking about certain places in the South. Now, after listening to this, you can look into South Carolina and see what opportunities are there. So, I appreciate you two hopping on the show. And let us know where we can find you, the social media handles, like websites, any additional products, or anything you want to promote. Please do let us know, and we'll include all that in the show notes.
Rashae, you go first. I know you're not a big social media guy, but you go first.
Hey, man, you can just find me. My name is Rashae Bay. So if you Google that, you're probably going to see a LinkedIn link or a Facebook link. Feel free to add me on Facebook or LinkedIn. As far as Instagram goes, I go by Ali Hancho on Instagram, so you can follow me there. Feel free to message me. And just good luck, man. This is a beautiful journey. Real estate is probably it's definitely not going to be the only thing that I did, but I promise you, man, I'm so thankful for getting into this game and taking the risk.
Definitely, man.
Yeah. And for me, man, I'm always it's always business. So at more than a 9 to 5, morethan9to5.com. And my personal handle is Leader Goat. So definitely add me, and let's definitely connect.
For sure, for sure. Definitely we'll have all that in the show notes, all the links to the website and everything. Definitely tap into the brand. I was on the website earlier. There's a lot of dope stuff there. You got merch, you got the ebook, you got a whole lot. So definitely make sure y'all go and head to the website, follow these brothers who are doing great things for the community, just helping us to continue to drive forward. But without further ado, thank you all so much for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Look forward to hearing from you all soon.